Welcome to One Ancestor at a Time, my very personal journey to discover history through the lens of my ancestors and the world they lived in. I'm Sui Tauloa Simon Young. In this installment, I'm going to introduce you to my parents. Every family tree starts just one generation prior, which in some ways doesn't feel like history because I was alive most of this time, but it's a good reminder history is happening all the time. Let's meet Graham and Annette. This is the photo on their headstone. Yes, they're both no longer with us, which is partly why I feel okay making this video. It's 2 years since Mum passed, and it's 45 years since Dad passed. The photo is from very early in their lives, perhaps before they were married, circa 1960, and it's one of the happiest photos of them together I've ever seen. Now, at the end of their lives, I see it this way. They've completed their journey down here, and they are looking back in encouragement, saying, "It's your turn now." Just under 9 years ago, I turned older than my dad ever did. It was weird. All of his lifespan summed up in a man younger than I currently was. I was 3 years old when he passed, after a battle with brain cancer. My memories of him are a collection of vague impressions, supplemented by a lifetime's searching through photos and artifacts. In some ways, Dad was like a fictional character to me, elusive, unknowable, yet much missed. C.S. Lewis wrote a book called A Grief Observed, but my young mind was unable to take in what it was observing. It was a grief experienced for sure, but not understood. There was always a sense of unfinishedness with me and Dad. I was always looking for him. It didn't help that Mum was a hoarder and our house was big and messy. Reminders of him were everywhere, like clues to some kind of mystery. I had Dad's clothes, his watch, his camera, not working anymore, his glasses, his tools, so many tools. When we packed up the house just a couple of years ago, I marveled at all the things he could do. Fix cars, do basic carpentry, plumbing, electrical wiring, ham radio. He was a polymath. He was good at so many things, and Mum was too. But then that's also part of their generation. Raised as the world was leaving the Depression and going through World War II, they learned how to make do, how to reduce, reuse, recycle before that ever became a catchphrase. Piecing together Dad's life is based on a few artifacts. His baptism certificate, a testimonial from his first job. Check out the single-digit phone number there. You've got to love small-town New Zealand. Dad worked in printing his whole life, ending up at Wilson & Horton, printers of the New Zealand Herald. While Dad worked in the printing industry all his life, towards his 30s, he started to upskill. He went to a night class at ATI, which later became AUT, the very university I studied law at, and he upskilled himself to an office manager. There is a cliche that at the end of your life, people don't think about what you did for a job. But for me, as an adult, finding a letter from Dad's employer after he passed, saying that he had contributed so much value to the company, meant so much to me as his son and as a person in business. So have a holistic approach to life. And yes, your family is important more than anything, but yes, also what you do with your life, what you do with that time is really important as well. Dad was a keen photographer. He even used to develop his own photos. So there are many photos he took and not a lot of photos with him in them. He was happier on the other side of the lens, I think. These candid everyday shots are from when he was in the Open Brethren Assembly Bible School. That was when he met my mum. They got married in 1962 and moved to the wild west of Auckland in what is now an affluent suburb, but back then it must have felt semi-rural. There's a letter to my dad from the council saying, "Thank you for your inquiry about sewerage. It'll be ready to be installed in about 2 years." So they really were camping out in the wilderness in those days. While I had a lot of Dad's things, I didn't have a lot of his thoughts, and that's maybe what I miss the most. The few insights I do have are from around the time he was fighting his final battles with cancer. There's a letter to his mother, my grandmother, from the year before he passed, when he was recovering from a brain operation. It's an incredibly trivial letter, back in the days that letters were the only way to communicate besides phone and face-to-face. But wow, is it such a treasure to me because it's him, his mannerisms and thoughts. I even get a mention. I've been going up to hospital for radiotherapy each weekday. Usually I work until about 2, then drive into the hospital, have my treatment, then drive on home. There's not a great deal of side effect, but my head does tend to feel tired afterwards, so it's good to get home and sit down and relax. Although Simon doesn't always think I should relax. Sorry, Dad. Graham passed away on March 24th, 1979. Mum took on the role of mother and father for my sister and I, and she did the absolute best she could, not realizing that she herself was fighting a health condition, chronic fatigue syndrome. We lived in an affluent area, but we definitely weren't rich. However, there was one thing we had in abundance, and that was culture. I took for granted having around me more books than I could ever hope to read. That felt like my birthright. We didn't travel a lot, but through the world of books, we were regularly encouraged to travel across space and time. We also visited the museum, the zoo, art gallery, and concerts on a regular basis. Our lives were full of curiosity and exploration, and for that I am forever grateful. In 1987, Mum had a midbrain stroke, a very rare form of stroke that doesn't paralyze either side but affects the ability for the eyes to focus. For years after that stroke, Mum had to wear an eye patch. Being Mum, she made a set of colour-coordinated eye patches to go with her outfits, the most stylish pirate in the world. Mum was creative. She was a multimedia artist and valued originality above everything. I'm not sure if Mum ever fully recovered from that stroke. She could get around okay, but many years later she developed vascular dementia, which eventually took her life at age 83. The trouble with dementia is I don't know when I had my last proper conversation with her. Grief is messy. Death and loss is messy. Dad left too soon. Mum's body endured too long after her mind left us. Grief is a teacher, if we're listening. Around the time we had to decide to let go of the family home, I learned about the land losses that had happened to Māori as part of the colonisation of New Zealand. I had an emotional attachment to this one house because it was where I'd grown up. Our family had it for exactly one generation, and yet I felt a sense of profound grief at saying goodbye. How then must tangata whenua have felt when the land they had a deep spiritual connection with for generations was taken from them unjustly? Not only that, but their culture and way of life was undermined, the very operating system of their collective. And that's only just being restored, even under a torrent of skepticism. I cannot equate my grief with theirs. It's plainly not the same, but I can use my little grain of grief plus imagination to try to put myself in their shoes. This just seems perfectly reasonable to me. I learned one more thing from Mum, and that was the art of just listening to pain. This is especially hard for men. We like to solve problems, and yet Mum's chronic illnesses posed a challenge that couldn't just be solved, just only lived through. When someone's in pain and you can't solve the problem, sometimes it takes more strength to simply listen to them. As Mum was in her final days, when she stopped eating and the rest home staff told us it was her body shutting down, I sat with her and started planning out the video for her funeral. I was telling her story, 83 years of life condensed into 10 minutes. I saw patterns and trends I'd never seen at the time. I saw that Mum had been a quiet revolutionary with a strong sense of mission to help people through creativity. She believed in a creator, and she loved creation and creativity. When you're at the end of someone's life and you're making an assessment of them, you do so with kindness. All the things that may have troubled you about a person in life fall away. You see only the absolute best in them. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could look at everybody that way? I mean, call me naive, but what if we could just look at one another while we're still living as treasured human beings who one day will no longer be with us? If we could look that way at our family, our colleagues, our enemies, our frenemies, even our politicians. I've been Simon Young, and this has been One Ancestor at a Time. If you like this, please subscribe so you can get the latest updates. Thank you so much.